All right, here we go. We've got another episode here of Coffee with Coach Patrick. Today I'm joined by Tim Zeng from Chena Swim Club. Good afternoon, Tim. How are we doing today?
Good. How are you, Pat?
I'm excellent, man. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this
Yeah,
and coming on and telling your story.
yeah. I'm very glad I got invited. Cause
Excellent. Well,
yeah,
I think you're going to do well. The biggest thing, man, is just relax and tell your story. I think a lot of people are curious to hear where you've come from in your swimming career and where you're going and all that stuff. So I think that it's going to be a lot of fun today. Um, and it's pretty simple. It's stuff that you've done in your career and a little bit of your journey. So the first thing I want to do, man, is just want to ask you, like, how are you doing with the lockdown? This is, I think, day 35 for us because it's Monday, April 20th. So day 35 of the lockdown. How are you doing health wise? How's your family doing? All that stuff. How's everybody in your world right now?
I think we're all doing pretty well. Like nobody got sick and stuff. Yeah, we're
Okay.
all doing pretty fine. The only thing is that I guess my family, they're tempting to go out to. Yeah, where I, I want to stay. I'm more like a staying home person. Yeah,
Yeah, stay a little bit more isolated, right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, what is it Dr. Bonnie Henry was saying is that we're doing really well, and BC's done a great job of isolating and flattening the curve, but we got to be smart right now. In the next 4 to 6 weeks, we got to really be smart, even though the temptation's there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the good news is, man, I think we got rain coming for the next, like starting either tomorrow or the next day. We're going to have rain for the next week or week and a half. And I never thought I'd say that's a good thing, but it might force people to stay inside and
Yeah,
isolate a little
yeah.
longer, right? Good. Well, I want to dip in right into your swim career, man. I want to talk about your journey. So, a lot of things that people might not know about you is that you have a ton of records, right? So I went through and I looked at it all. So you've broken 47 Chena club records that you currently have. Like you've broken more than that, but you currently have 47 club records. Was it 29 of them individual, 18 relay records? You've also got four individual provincial records you broke in your career. You have four relay provincial records you broke in your career. And you've also broken one individual Canadian age group record and one relay Canadian age group record. So that's a lot of records, and you've had a lot of success. But if any Chena swimmer kind of looks at your career, they'll notice that you're on that record board as a 10 and under, and then you're not really visible much at all. You're not on there at all as an 11 and 12-year-old, and then you come back short course as a 14-year-old, where you had a provincial record in the 50 free. At the time, it was an age group national record in the short course 100 back, and you had a couple other club records at that time frame. And then the story continues. So obviously, there's a bit of a gap there, and I'll
Yeah.
get to that. But going back in time, before you were the 10 and under Tim Zhang breaking some records, where did you get your start in swimming? Like, how did you start? What motivated you to get into swimming? Was it a person? Was it something that got you into the sport? Like, how did you get started with your swim career?
I mean, nothing really get me started. It's just that I think it all begins when I was six or seven. That I went on a summer camp, a swimming summer camp, and
Okay.
then I was doing pretty well there. So the coach told my mom that I have talent, I'm talented, and I have potential to go fast. And I guess that's how I started.
Were you in Canada or in China at the time?
Oh, I was in China. Yeah,
Yeah,
back in
because you were
yeah,
you were born in China,
yeah,
correct? But you moved to Canada, and a lot of people don't realize this, but you're a Canadian citizen. You're not. Like, this is your home. This is your country. Like you
yeah.
became a Canadian citizen a while back, but you got your start in China. So you started at 6 or 7, going to a camp, and then from there, you obviously started swimming a little bit more seriously. When did you guys make the move to Canada? And when did you move to China?
We moved here in 2006, I believe. I think. Yeah,
Okay, so you had
and
been around
then
8 or 9 at
yeah,
that time, right?
yeah, around yeah eight, nine, 10, I think. And then we stay here. I mean, I stayed here till 2000, 2008, and then I went back to China.
Okay. So you came here for a couple years. You swam at Chena. I remember coming here and they showed me this video of this little 10-year-old boy who was smashing this. I think at the time it was a provincial record or Canadian record, whatever it was at the time, this 10 under 50 free. We used to always laugh about it. Can you maybe clarify that for me? What was that 50 free record?
Oh yeah, that 10 and under 50-meter freestyle short course record.
Okay.
Yeah, because my mom was reading on I think back then there's like a swimming magazine with all the age group records on it.
I
So
think
my
it was
mom, Yeah.
Yeah, the Tag magazine. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So my mom read it, and then she saw that my time was really close to it. So she says that if I can break the record, she'll give me a video game console. Yeah. So I just went for it.
So you started with the bribery early then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So you swam at Chena, you had that success, and then, I mean, obviously you broke a record as a youngster in the short course 50 free. So you had speed right away, but then you had to move back to China, and you went back for I think a couple years, right?
Yes. So I've moved back in 2008, and then stayed there for like 3 years, around three
Okay.
years,
Yeah,
and I came back here in 2012. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Wait, and when you moved back for good. Now you came back to Canada in 2012 for good, and you've lived here ever since.
yeah.
So I'm curious, for this young guy who was fast as a youngster, was it something specific, or was it just like coach said, get in and go fast, and you just got in and went fast?
I think it's just gone and went fast. Yeah, just think about just think about swimming fast, I think.
Now, for you, even as a young kid, was it about going fast to see how fast you could go, or was it going fast to win? Like, what was it that drove you? What was the motivator that got you excited about that?
Yeah, it's more like going fast to win, because I remember back when I was younger, I was really competitive, and
Hmm.
I basically win all, like I try to win all event that I can.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was really more competitive. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of the guy that I met. It's funny because I'm going to tell a couple of funny stories right now. So the first one is I remember you were in Canada, and it was before you had moved back, and I think it might have been in the spring or the summer of 2012, before you came back and joined, or maybe it was that year, and I might get the dates wrong. But I remember I was running my practice at Harry Jerome, and I was swimming, and I remember some of the swimmers saying, "Oh, that's Tim Zeng. I think you got in the public lane because you were still swimming in China, so you were in Canada. You were just doing a training session for
Yeah.
yourself." And I remember looking over, and I was like, he didn't look all that special to me, because what people don't know about you is you have the amazing ability when you're, especially when you're younger, not so much now, but you could swim and make it look like you didn't know how to swim with how bad you could you could
Yeah.
swim your technique,
Yeah.
right? But when
Yeah.
you lock it all together and you go fast, it's absolutely brilliant. So I remember that story. I like to throw that in because I saw you and I was like, but that's a guy swimming on his own at the time. I think you were 13 or 14.
Yeah.
But then you made the move back and you got a hold of me, and you asked me about coming in and swimming and joining the top group and coming back to the club, and said, yeah, sure, come on in, let's go. And I remember the season started, and we were looking early on, and there was a swim meet at UBC, right? We did the October one. I think it's the, oh, I don't remember. It used to be like a 50 and 100 of every event, and then maybe
Yeah.
100 item or something like that. So I remember we talked about it. I said, well, why don't you go to that meet? You'll be turning 15, I think, a couple days after the meet's over. Go and break a few club records because you deserve to have them. Because I think you had broken the club records in training. I think we did some dive
Yeah.
effort. You were faster. So I always think this is hilarious because you are my first athlete that I've ever had break a Canadian age group national record, and I wasn't even there. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So you went to the meet, and I think it was Stephen Vandermeulen, and Coach Stephen was working with you because I wasn't at the meet. We got you off the blocks. We ended up breaking the provincial record 50 free, and then the Canadian age group record and the 100 back, and got a couple other club records. And that was kind of that first kind of rebirth into swimming in Canada, swimming at Chena. How did that feel, having so much success and just coming in and being, boom, you jumped in the water and away you went, and you're breaking records in your first meet back? How did that feel?
I mean, it felt pretty awesome to be back first, and then I guess I was really excited because I know I'm able to break the record, and then so I just went for it. I tried to get the record for the 50 free as well, but I just missed it by 1/10. Hey.
Yeah, you just missed the national record, but you got the provincial
Yeah.
one. So, and that kind of started things off. And the neat thing was you came in 2012, and we had a really, really neat group, right? Because we already had guys like Adam Holm and Rob Hill and James Durgasoff. And then we also had the additions. Chris Raprosky was second year in the group. And then Nick Duke was in the group starting at the same time as you. And we still had Charlotte. And we had a really, really good group of young swimmers. And I know that you came from a really amazing group of swimmers. There's a lot of good swimmers where you were swimming in China, but how was it for you coming back to the club that you knew, but having that core group of really good athletes that became your instant teammates that you knew a little bit, but you were all in the same general age bracket and there was really good swimmers. Like, how was that for you as an adjustment coming in with a new coach and me that you just met and a really good group around you? That must have been at least helpful in the transition of coming back.
Yeah, I think at first I wasn't really used to it because like even though I know like a couple guys from when I was younger, after I haven't talked to them for a long time. So when I first come back here, I feel a little bit, I guess, nervous, I would say. But then as times goes on and then we get along, it makes me like I feel better and then more comfortable to swim with them. That's how I get faster, I think.
Absolutely. And also, I was curious because I remember you and I talking a lot about this in your first year or two when you came back. And because I was always curious, I always asked you questions like, what was the swimming like in China? What was your group? Or I think you said you came from a small city in China. And what was the population of that small city?
Uh, it's not a small city. It's quite big, I would say. More than millions.
More than
Yeah,
so
I
like,
can't figure out the exact number right now.
but it's a small city for China, is what
Okay.
you're saying, or was it a small province? I remember you saying it wasn't overly large compared to.
It's like the third biggest city.
Oh, okay.
Third, fourth, yeah.
All right. So you were just leading me on. You were just feeding me
No,
anything. You're like, I'll get this guy to believe anything.
What I said, yeah.
The other thing I asked you a lot about at the time was like, because I was always curious about the differences in coaching styles, and you know, what could you say was the difference of being this 14-year-old guy who was you were having success in China? It wasn't like you weren't one of the fastest guys in your age group in China. You were already at a really high level, correct?
I guess, yeah.
Right. So the training you were doing in China compared to the training you were doing with me, and I know I'm a little bit different as a coach, but how was that just transitioning in the style of training or the way that the coaching went or the type of practices? That must have been a big shock or change for you.
Yeah. So back in China, I think the training is more intense, and then the coaches are really strict as well. So I wasn't able, like, I'm not enjoying it as much as here because if I did something wrong, they'll just yell at you and stop doing scream at yell at you, stuff like that. And then I think here I enjoyed it more because I was able to have fun with other teammates. Yeah, with all of the teammates. Yeah.
So when you say it was more intense, like what do you mean? Like the practices were harder, there was more training, it was more demanding, and my workouts were just easy, or what do you mean by it was more intense? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I think the workout is just harder. We have, like, for example, we usually do a lot of pulls and then in volumes of thousands, 2,000, yeah.
And that's not something I do a lot of.
Yeah.
The other thing you used to tell me at the time was whenever you came over, one of the things that we do is more specific training and thinking about our races and how we're training for the competitions and things like that. Whereas I think in China it was more volume intensive training and just back and forth and heavy meters. Like, was that a big adjustment for you to start thinking about training specifically versus just volume up and down?
Yes. So yeah, in China we just pretty much do everything in chunks of volumes. We basically just do so. Yeah, in China it's less specific of each of our own strokes. It's more like just do whatever the coach want you to do. Whereas here I can think about my own strokes more.
So one of the things too, I was always curious about is I know for me, like when I have a swimmer come back from a race, I would ask you like, well, walk me through your swim or tell me how you felt with your race. Give me some feedback about your race. That was not easy for you at first. Did you find that as a tough adjustment that you knew when you came back from a race, I was going to ask you to break it down. I was going to ask you to talk about it. Was it hard to do at first? And the second part of the question is, did it help you also start to really think about your races and think about your swimming a little bit more detailed than you may have in the past?
Yeah, it definitely helped me to think a lot more, because before then I kind of just go and do a swim and not think about it afterwards. But then after coming over here and talking to you after races, it made me think about which parts I can improve in my swims.
Absolutely. Um, so as we progressed through your career a little bit, and we went from those early seasons, you're 14 turning 15 the first year we worked together, and that was the 12-13 season. And then the 13-14 season, I think at that point you were, I want to get this right, I think you were only in grade 10 at that point.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because you were a pretty young guy. I think, yeah, you were only 16. And we had a goal that year of making the Junior Pan Pac squad in 2014. Like that was the goal that you had for yourself. You wanted to make it. You're going to make it in the 100 back, and that was something we set out to do. So then we worked through the season. We progressed through. Actually, sorry, I'm getting ahead. At the end of your first season in 2013, you were part of breaking a Canadian record, age group record in the medley relay, which was a really cool thing that you guys worked together as a group. So I think that's pretty cool. And one of the neat thing about that record is that 3 guys on that team, if you fast forward to 2014, you guys all made the Junior Pan Pac squad together, and that was a big goal that you had. So it was you, James, and Rob, and then Nico was also on the relay record. And you made the Junior Pan Pac team. But as I spoke to James about this, once we got off of trials in 2014, you really started missing a lot of workouts, right?
Yeah.
If you remember back. And I was not necessarily the nicest guy in the world to you guys at that point. I was pretty hard on you. Do you remember there was a point? I think there was a certain amount of days away from the Junior Pan Pacs, and I think I sat you and James down. And I said, "Listen, guys, if you guys don't lock it in right now, then I'm gonna call, and we're not gonna go. Right? You're not gonna be because you're not gonna be able to swim as well as you should."
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think that point. I mean, I'm not really, I guess, focused on too focused on swimming,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just, I guess, a lot of things happening like outside of swimming for me as well, and then I guess that's how I ended up like having my goggles falling off during races.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, we're going to get to the Junior Pan Pac meet.
Oh,
The reason I'm asking the question is that I see this a lot in swimmers, especially young swimmers, and someone like yourself as a 16-year-old making a junior team. That's a really cool experience, and as you know, you were one of the youngest guys on that team, right? But I guess the thing I see sometimes, and I'm wondering if you feel looking back now, if you maybe fell victim to this, is that your goal was to make the team, and then once you made the team, it's like, well, I made my goal,
yeah.
right? And then you kind of backed off. And then there's other things outside the pool, of course, that stuff's going on. But do you feel like that played into it a little bit, that I made my goal of making the team, and then I relaxed a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's definitely how it was. Because
Yeah.
so I think back then, all I was thinking is just making a team. And then after that, I just kind of just eased off on myself a little bit.
And then as we went into the meet, like we did our staging camp in Victoria before we went to Maui for the competition. And we're going to be honest, obviously, it maybe wasn't going as smoothly as you would like with the pre-meet training and things like that, especially when it came to the items like team meetings, right?
Yeah.
I think the very first team meeting, you were late. And then I think it was the second or third team meeting where I went to your room and I knocked on your door, and you opened the door and you're like, "What?" And I said, "Any chance you want to come to the team meeting?" Now, I know you personally, and I know that that's not a guy who doesn't care or doesn't think it's serious or anything like that. And I know you're somebody that would probably worry about, like, what did that feel like whenever you knew you were kind of just like, it's just being a 16-year-old kid. Let's be honest. Most guys at 16, 17, it's going to be when they're a little bit spacey, and it's a hard time for a young guy. How did it feel for you? Was it hard on you just being the young guy on the team, and then you're late for a meeting, you miss a meeting, and it's like, it's not that I don't care, but it's coming across that way. How was that for you? Was that hard on you? Like how was it processing that whole trip experience or that whole team experience?
Yeah, I feel very embarrassed because I missed the meeting and stuff, all that stuff. And then I think that even though that's not I guess I was also very nervous during that trip, because there's a lot of new guys around me, and then new coaches. I never been to one of the trip like that.
Yeah. And I think that when you got to the meet, there was a lot of things that kind of came up. I still think there's this one picture of me, and I think I've got my arms out to the side, and I can see you in the water. And I was like, "What are you doing?" type of thing when we were down in Maui. It just things weren't rolling so well. And the reason why, and I'm not dwelling on this so much, is because I know that that was up until that point, you have just been riding this flow of success. You show up, you go fast. You show up, you go fast. You show up, you win. Like, and that's there's a lot of young swimmers that have a lot of success early on, and that's why I kind of am bringing this type of stuff up. Is that you showed up at Junior Pan Pac, you're like, okay, I'm going to go fast, and you didn't win, right? You couldn't just turn the switch on. And yeah, we can laugh about the 200 free relay, and it's like you dove in, and at 35 you stopped because you had water in your goggles, and you kept on swimming. And I know I was so frustrated at the time, and it's you were embarrassed by that, and like that stuff happens, right? It's unfortunate it happened at a big moment, but going through that whole first Team Canada experience, because that was your first Team Canada experience, what did you take away from that trip? Because you didn't swim as fast as you wanted. You maybe didn't, people didn't get the impression of you that was correct. I don't think that people got to know the real you the way that I know you. And it was just maybe not the most, I was gonna say pot. It wasn't the total package of your first Team Canada trip that you had hoped it would be. So what did you take coming off of that? How did you feel when that whole thing wrapped up and concluded? Where were you at, just mentally as a swimmer? Where did you want to go with your swimming at that point as a young guy?
I think at that point, all I think was that just I need to get my stuff together the next time I went on a trip. The next time I go on a trip like this. So yeah, and then be better in swimming, because having more confidence in myself the next time.
Did you also notice that when you got to that level that everybody's good?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, and I've wondered this a lot. You're a guy who could just turn on and go fast. Like I've had the privilege of coaching. I've worked with you the last 8 years, I think, of your career. We've worked together, and I've seen you do stuff and workout that drops jaws and turns heads. Like you can just get up and go fast at any point. And this year you did it very, very regularly, where you just get up and do something crazy fast. And do you think that that was almost a bit of a, I won't say a curse, but a disadvantage for you, that sometimes you didn't necessarily work as hard or focus on the little things as much because you could turn it on as an age grouper?
Yes, I think back then, just like you said, I can flip the switch on and off. Mm-hmm. So that made me think less of my technique and stuff. So every time it's just all drop that and go. So after I realized I can not go any faster like that, I start to think about my swimming more, mm-hmm. which helps me improve a lot.
100%. And what I think about a lot is, I know that you and I have had a few disagreements, and a lot of them were based on me not knowing you or misunderstanding you. And like I said, I've had the privilege of getting to know you, but if I look back, I used to get pretty mad. I thought, like I'm sure a lot of other people thought, well, this guy doesn't care, right? He doesn't care in training. He just wants to get up and go fast, and he doesn't care. But that's not the case at all. And now I know you. So what would you say to somebody like what you said to me back then? Or what would you say to somebody who says, well, this guy doesn't care because he doesn't focus as much in training, or he doesn't think about the little details, or people who have that impression of you? What would you say to that?
I would say back then I didn't care as much, but now I care a lot. I focus more on what I need to do to be better. And then I always think of that, if I were doing it, I should do it right. Otherwise, I would just be wasting my time.
Absolutely. And I would say it's a little easier now as a young man who's 22 versus a kid who's 16. Like even when you do care about being great, you don't understand everything that goes into being great at 16, right? Yeah. And one of the things that I find interesting about you, and this is something that a lot of people don't know, so the way your family is set up, that your dad still lives and works in China, and you're here with your mom, right?
Yeah.
and you've also got a younger brother and a younger sister. Um, so part of the process of you living in Canada is like you're not just a student, you're not just a guy who's training and swimming at a high level and representing Canada, but in this time frame, you're also kind of big brother slash dad figure for your younger siblings, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that obviously plays into the distractions outside the pool that things that you're having to help with and focus on. That there was a lot on your plate at the time. Um, and the reason I bring this up is that I didn't even know this. I was your coach and I spent all this time with you, and I didn't know all of that until probably about 2 years ago, I think, is when I finally knew that you were doing all of that and having to deal with all that. Um, so, and the reason I bring it up is kind of interesting because now we've had chats about you getting frustrated with your younger brother when he was about 15, 16. And I'm just curious how much like that gives you that reflection of like, oh my God, he's doing this. All he wants to do is video game, or he's not focused, or he's not this. Do you see a lot of yourself whenever you're dealing with that now as a guy in his early 20s?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've wasted too much time on video games, and then I don't want him to be the same like me, because I regret it.
I remember you telling me that you caught yourself sometimes getting upset or lecturing him with the same stuff that myself or somebody would have said to you. Um, and I find that's when you know you're getting a little older.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't want him to go through the same mistake that I have.
But with all your mistakes, do you feel like I always believe that everything happens for a reason. Do you feel that all of your mistakes have also contributed and helped you become who you are? Like who you are today?
Yes, because if one for those mistakes, I think I won't realize all this by now. Yeah.
Because like if you show up at Junior Pan Pacs in 2014 and you just flip the switch and say you win the 100 backstroke, I don't think you learn much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that kind of leads us to the next stage of the career because there was a lot that was going on at that point after 2014. Our group changed a little bit. We had some swimmers move on. It was a bit of a different dynamic. And then we continued to have some decent success. But in 2015, you watched your teammate make the Pan Am team and the senior team, but you missed the junior team that year. I think it was Junior Worlds in 2015, and you missed that team. And then in 2016, we had Olympic trials, and I think you made at least one, if not two finals at trials, but didn't quite make the team. And we're in that bit of that gray area and trying to figure out what's next and what do you do with your career. And I think at that time you were unsure, right? I know like I'm sharing because I know we've talked and you weren't sure, like, am I really good enough to go and make a senior team? Am I really good enough to do this? Should I go here? Should I go there? And you were really unsure, right? At that point, you were graduating high school and you made the decision to stay back and do another swim season with me and with the group and get ready for 2017. But can you just walk me through what you were going through as you were graduating high school and not really being sure, like, do I go to university? Do I look here? Do I look there? Am I really going to be a high level swimmer? Should I stop swimming? Like, these are all the things that I know we talked about. But what were you going through as you were finishing grade 12 and trying to decide what's next for you?
I guess at that point, I wasn't really sure if I should continue swimming or not, or just be like a second tier swimmer.
Can you share why you felt like you weren't sure if you should keep going or if you should just settle back?
Because I didn't go the time I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I guess, on the other hand, that I think I could be better if I could just focus more on swimming. That's that's what made me decide that I continue to swim the highest level. Yeah.
Well, and that's interesting because what ended up coming off of that, because you didn't swim as well at trials as you should have. And yeah, you're 18 and you didn't make the Olympic team, which is 18-year-old men don't usually make the Olympic team, right?
Yeah.
But then that led you to, at the time, what was your best season, right? The 2016, 2017 season, you came in and you were on it. You were absolutely on fire. You trained the best you'd ever trained. You dialed in technically. Like everything you were doing was just, compared to you in the past, was on another level. And it was really exciting. And 2016 ended well. Like, I mean, we went and we almost won the men's banner at senior nationals in the summer, and you guys swam great. You won a bunch of medals, and that was really good. But you came in really focused and really dialed in 2016, 2017, and you did the work you needed to do. But what was interesting about that season is that you weren't as confident at all. It was maybe your least confident season of the years that I had coached you. Like, would you agree with that assessment for that 16, 17 year where it was the best work you had done, most focused you'd been, but maybe the least confident you've ever been?
Yeah, because I wasn't sure how fast I'm going to be. I even asked you, I even asked you about what do you think I can go, and then you told me I can go faster, but I didn't believe it.
Yeah. I remember having those chats because you were doing this pace work. And I remember telling you, I was like, Tim, you asked me how fast you think you could go. And I said, I think if you hit a perfect race in the 200 back, you can maybe sneak under 2 minutes, but I know you can go 200. And what people don't understand is at the time, your best time was 205, but I thought that was completely irrelevant because you hadn't had the improvement in that 200 backstroke that I knew you were ready for. So I think that the best time was misleading. But I remember you looking at me like, I can't go that fast. Like, this guy's crazy, right? And then we went and we did our prep. And the truth is you weren't going super fast in work because you had never actually been in that kind of work. You had never really trained that way. I think that echoed a little bit of that lack of confidence. So we go down to Florida, we do our prep work, and everything's coming down. Right? We're seeing your split times, your pace times, everything's coming down. So on day one of 2017 trials, you had a best time 100 backstroke, but you were still not super confident, right? You were hoping to go fast. I think at the time you were like 55.4 or something like that. And I'm trying to remember, did you make the podium on that swim or were you fourth?
I think I'm fourth, yeah.
Fourth, yeah. So you had a great swim, you had a great time, and then that led to the next day. I'm trying to remember if the next day was the 50 or the 200.
I think it's the 50 back.
50 was the next day. So you got up the next day on the 50, and that was a cool moment because you got up, you had a great morning swim, you get up in finals, you get to race Javi, and I know how much you love racing Javi. Yeah. And then you threw down, right? You threw down one of the best 50 backstrokes in the history of Canada. You broke the BC provincial record. You broke the Commonwealth Games pool record in Victoria, the Saanich pool record. And you won that 50 backstroke and you were beaming. And the thing that I remember about that race was how pumped Javi was for you because he was pretty stoked. And that was your first national title, if I'm not mistaken. Like out of trials, the first time you had won an event.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that moment, after the 100 back gave you confidence and then you swam that 50, like what did it feel like to be a national champion and realize that, hey, this year of focusing and the hard work really paid off?
Yeah, I think it felt really good.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like I wanted to get on the podium more. I want to be the best. Yeah. I think that medal gave me the confidence the next day, which made me make me have a good 200 back swim.
Well, and that's one of the cool moments in Chena history. We have a couple of cool ones, obviously, but if I remember correctly, that final for the 200 backstroke, you were in lane 4, and then I think Rob Hill was lane 3, and Nick Duke was lane 2. So it was Chena in 2, 3, 4, and it was guys that you had come up with and swam with, and you guys were all in the final of the 200 backstroke. Yeah. And little side story to that, I remember chatting with Tom Johnson about this, and I said, like, well, based on his pace work and everything he's been doing, the theory is he should be able to come home sub 30 on the last 50 of his 200 backstroke based on what I've seen in training the last 7 months. And I remember that morning, you still thought, even though you were you still thought I was nuts when I said you can go 2 below, but you put up the fastest time in the morning, went 2:02.8 or something like that. And you looked at the board and you're kind of like, huh, and a little bit of disbelief. And do you remember what you said to me when you came back from the race?
No.
No? Yeah. You came back and you're like, okay, I think I can go 2 below. It's like now you believed it, right?
Yeah.
And then you got up at night, and I think Rob won the gold, and you came second and won the silver, but you moved past Javi on the third 50. And the best thing about that is I thought you can come back sub 30 in the last 50 based on your training. You came home 29.9, went 2 below, had a great swim, made the podium again. And then we talked afterwards, and you remember talking, and I said, you know, hey, Tim, what do you think you can go in the 100 back if it was tomorrow instead of being on Thursday? And if I asked you that question now, what do you think you could have went? How much faster do you think you could have went in the 100 backstroke, just with where you were confidence wise?
I think 54.
Yeah.
Yeah, because winning that medal for the 50 back really gave me confidence of the swim.
Mhm.
I'll do next for my next swim. Yeah.
And you see the irony in the fact that you won the 50, you were second in the 200, but in the 100 you were only fourth. Like you had a
Yeah.
much bigger swim in you. And that honestly, man, that was your week, right? That meet in Victoria, you were outstanding, feeling super high. The irony being is that you swam great, but the way the selection broke down, you just missed the FISU Games team in 2017,
Yeah.
right? So you didn't actually get a team off of what was a phenomenal swim meet. Um, but you would say that was probably the highest you'd ever been in your career at that point after
Yeah.
those trials, right? So the reason I want to bring that up is kind of where we go next, and this is all part of the journey. And like, it is definitely not a straight line for you. It's ups and downs and things like that. Um, but off that, we kind of finished the season. We swam fine in the summer. It wasn't anything wrong, and we were gearing up to have a good 17, 18 year. You were back, and we were going to go at it again. And you started the season really good. You were training well. Things were humming. And then you went on a recruiting trip because you were looking at schools, and you went on a
Yeah.
recruiting trip to visit UBC. And this is the real ironic thing. This is where I thought we had a good relationship, and I thought I knew you, but there was so much about you that I didn't know in the fall of 2017. Um, and you changed me as a coach significantly with what you went through and then what we went through coming back from this. And that's why I think it's really important, because I thought I knew you, and I thought I had everything pegged with you, and I thought I really knew how to coach you, but I didn't know you as well as I thought I did. Because you went on a recruiting trip and everything was fine. You had a great start to the season. We were maybe, I don't know, 7 weeks in. Everything was fine. And then I didn't see you for 6 months,
Yeah.
right? Like you kind of, you didn't disappear, but you kind of just, you walked away from swimming, and you just had to get away from it all. Um, and then I didn't hear from you again until the night before trial started, or senior started in 2018. I think you sent me a text.
Yeah.
So for anybody who doesn't know, this is basically going from October until April, and we hadn't spoken. I hadn't really heard from you. Maybe a text here or there, but we really hadn't heard or spoken. And I'll be honest, I was pretty cheesed. I was pretty upset with you at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and then I remember getting the text in Montreal saying like, oh, really? Now? Forget this guy. I'll deal with him when I get home. Because I didn't have a clue what you were going through.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through a little bit, like that time frame where you had to walk away from the sport, where you had to get your head right, you had to sort a bunch of things, where you didn't really feel like you could talk to me or your teammates or anybody because you kind of cut us all off, and you had to go deal with you. What was going on at that time, with whatever you feel comfortable sharing, of course?
Okay. I think at first it was just consistent nights of I couldn't fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I often like just staying up all day, and then just could not sleep. I think as that goes on, I think I was a little bit mentally ill,
Mm-hmm.
because I was thinking that if I didn't get enough sleep, I'll suffer. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like I totally get where you're coming from. Like, if you didn't get enough sleep, you were really worried about your health,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I know this now because we've talked about this, but like going into that, like what was the dark place you went into? Because you started having a lot of real big worries and doubts and fears, and just about your overall health and where you were. Like, that was a lot going on for a young guy.
Yeah, and then at that point, I didn't really want to talk to anybody. I kind of just want to be alone. That's why I shut off, I guess, everything off outside of me. Yeah.
Do you feel shutting everything off and everyone out? Do you think that helped you or actually made it worse? Did you get into a lower place by kind of going inward?
I guess at that point, at first, it's definitely made me feel better, I'll say. But then later on, I figured that I needed to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, I think I just become better. Yeah.
because I know you reached out to me, and we went and we sat and we grabbed a coffee, right? I think we
Yeah.
talked for an hour and a half. And I will say, I had coached you. This was the 6th year that we were working together. I know you went AWOL for a bit, but I'd known you for 6 years almost. And when we went and had coffee is where I really got to know you. And I know for you, maybe it's family, it's cultural, but sharing how you're feeling or talking about a depression or talking about a downtime or talking about being mentally unwell, that's not something you had ever done before, right?
Yeah. That, and just to share how I feel, that, yeah, it's something that I'm not really used to.
Did it after we spoke, and that was the first time you'd really talked to somebody like I'm outside of your family, right? And just to sit and open up and share what you had been going through and what was going on in your life, like did it help get you going again? Did what was the feeling after you had shared what was going on with somebody outside, like with me, with a coach?
Yeah, definitely helped me feel better, because knowing that there's so much people that care for me, that I can reach out to them if for help, yeah,
Mhm.
definitely make me feel better and more comfortable. Yeah.
If you were giving advice to your younger self about this particular time or things that you were going through and things that you didn't talk about, would you tell yourself to do things differently or something sooner? Like what would you say if you can go back and talk to 16-year-old Tim or 17-year-old Tim, and what would you say to that person who was going through that, who was dealing with it all by themselves?
I would say that reach help, reach out for help if you can. Don't just dealing with this all by yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really powerful message. And that's one of the things I wanted you to share because I think what you went through is extremely common. I think that's what I said to you when we met in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I know that was easier for you to hear, like, okay, it's normal, it's common, like, okay, like I can get through this. And then we had to talk about your swimming career and what you wanted to do with it. So did you find that coming back after 6 months off, there had to be concerns and fears about how fast am I going to go? Can I even get back to where I was? Like this is a significant amount of time out of the water. Like how did you how what were you going through at the time when you were deciding to come back after being out for a half a year?
Yeah, there's definitely some concern, because I had a great season in 2017. So
Mhm.
into 2018, I was not on track, definitely not on track. So I was a little bit worried that I'm not going to perform at my best. So
I know that when we spoke, I said that one thing you have to be prepared for is realistic goals. And it's kind of interesting that you and James have swum together for so many years. But the 17, 18 year, you guys didn't, you swam together the first 6 or 7 weeks. And then you were gone for 6 months. And then when you were coming back, he took 5.5 months off. So around the same time frame, and you guys are only separated in age by about a year. So you didn't really swim with him. So you came back. And I think one of the things that I talked to you about was similar to him when he came back was realistic expectations, right? And I said, if you're going to come back, you know that you're not going to be at your best this season. It'll be another year. And we'll try to see how fast we can get to by the summer. Whenever we had that talk and I told you that truth that it was not going to be as fast as you want in the summer, did that give you any doubt or concern about coming back or about pushing through with how long it was going to take to get you back to an elite level swimmer?
yes, definitely, because I guess at that point I really just want to be back to where I was in 2017. So I was a little bit worried that I'm not gonna be as fast. So I think, yeah, at that point I was doubting a little bit about myself, that I'm not gonna be as perform the best as I can back in 2017. So getting back into swimming is a little bit hard, because I wasn't confident enough in myself.
But then you ended up swimming all right. Right? Nothing
Yeah.
magical, but I think you snuck into you made the final in the 100 back. You swam okay in the summer at those 2018 summer trials, and then that set up last season. So did you feel a little bit better on the comeback when you swam at trials in Edmonton? You're like, okay, you know what? It's not as fast as I want to be, but it's not that bad. And
Yeah.
did that give you a bit of hope, or get you a bit excited about the next season?
Yes. So it's definitely better than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I was. I think. I think back then I think that I'm able to recover fast and then just do another good season.
So we had to make some adjustments when you came back. So one of the things going into the 18-19 season, there was two pieces. One, we had a different dynamic again with the group. Nick had moved on. We had William Marowak come in. James was coming back after being out of the water and him taking a break. So it was just a bit of a different group and a smaller group, which I think was necessary last year to kind of reset everybody. Um, when you came back, you worked through the season. You didn't maybe swim as fast as you wanted to at 2019 trials, but that was a lot to do with. There was still a bit of confidence issues, right? Coming
Yeah.
back in 2019. Um, but you did swim fast enough to make the FISU Games team, right? So you made your first senior team, but you had a thought or a doubt, and for a period of time, you're like, maybe I'm not going to go. And I'm just curious if you can walk me through what you were feeling when you found out you made the team and your teammates were all excited for you, but you're in your mind, you're like, well, maybe I won't go. And what was your thought process? Because it wasn't a very long time that you said maybe you won't go. It was very short. But what was that seed of doubt? What made you think maybe I won't go or maybe I shouldn't go to FISU's?
Because I think after trials, I was looking back to it, and then I didn't really go a best time. So I was thinking that if I go to FISU, that I'm not gonna be as fast as I wanted to be. So that kind of concerned me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then after that, I was talking to my parents and stuff. My parents think that I should go to FISU and see and just have like just to get a good experience because it's the first, I guess, international meet that I've been to. So yeah, so they want me to see how all the swimmers around the world are different than what I do.
Absolutely. So having gone and done FISU's and having experienced it, did you make the right decision to go?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I gained a lot of experience. Yeah,
And what was that experience like being, because you were in Italy, right?
yeah, yeah.
So what was that experience like being in Italy, racing at FISU's? Like, tell me about it.
I think for me, just that it just made me more comfortable in racing at a such high level meet. So yeah, even though it wasn't great, but I was really excited. And then I think the team environment is really good. And
Mhm. And you got to take part in some relays too, right?
yeah, yeah.
Like, if you had to compare your first senior team experience in 2017 to your junior Pan Pac experience and getting a second chance at it, but on a senior level, like, did you enjoy it more? Were you able to like live in the moment more, appreciate it more? Like, was it like how was it different for you than maybe the 2014 junior team?
I think in 2014 I was more nervous. I
Mhm.
was about not doing well and then just hold back the team. But then I guess in FISUs that I kind of just enjoy being with everybody else and then just go for it.
Do you feel that the FISU's experience gave you extra excitement going into the Olympic year?
Yes. Yes. It just made me it just made me feel like I want to be in an event that's more like that.
Mm-hmm. It's like you got a taste of it and you wanted more.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, and then that started us off this year. And I mean, this season unfortunately got abruptly interrupted with everything that's gone on with COVID-19 and all that stuff. But like I said a lot this year that you're in the best shape since 2017. But by the time we got through the end of February and we finished our work cycle, at that point, I knew you were in better shape than 2017, which was when you were at your best, and you were really, really ready to go. And unlike in past years where we kind of stretched and did all the different events, we had really dialed in. It was the 100 back, 50 free, 100 free. We're going more sprints this year and really dialing into that. And the plan wasn't necessarily to swim the 200 backstroke at trials because we hadn't focused on it all year. But I'll speak as your coach who watch you every day. Like, you could have thrown down a sub 2 minute 200 backstroke if you wanted to. That's the level of fitness you had. So we felt really good about, you know, your 100 back and the goal of breaking 54 and getting into that mix so you can make the team. I guess two questions. The first one is, how did you feel your preparation and your work was? Like, how ready did you feel for trials this year?
I was really excited because I think that I'm able to do my best, just like 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to going to trials and then making the team. Hopefully making the team.
But you felt you were ready to do it, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that mentally it was you're probably in the best place you had ever been as a swimmer to get up and perform and be at your best in that moment?
Yes, definitely.
So in that, what do you think was contributing to that? Is it your age? Is it the training that you've done, where you were in your life? Like, what would you think were the key pieces to why you felt mentally and physically ready like you never had before?
I think just the training we did. And then, yeah, I think it's just the training we did. And I was going really fast in the water. And I think that's how, I think that's how I got excited about going to trials.
Well, I think it's like we always talk about how fast you're going, but it was like the fact that you were going consistently fast, right? Like, you had done fast things in the past, but this year it was unlike other years in that we can get you up and do something fast every day if we wanted to. And that was kind of the thing. Like, you knew you can get up and go fast anytime you wanted. So it was like the little kid Tim, but as a kind of a young man now, right? So that was my first kind of part to the question about trials. But my second question is, how are you feeling with, I guess, the cancellation of trials and postponement of the Olympics? We were ready, and all of a sudden, boom, at the last second, because our season stopped a day before we were supposed to fly to Florida, right? So we were in the last couple of weeks, and we were going to get up and race. So how did you feel with all the stopping and the cancellation? I guess part B to that question is, how do you feel about having to wait till April 2021 and August 2021 for the Olympics? Take me through the emotions you went through with everything stopping, being canceled, and then postponed.
I think at first it was definitely a little bit disappointing because I know I can be fast at trials, but then second thought, I think that with trials moving to next year, I have more time to get ready. So which means that I can be even faster, having a better chance of making the team.
I agree with that. So I guess, what are you doing now with 5 weeks of no water? What kind of stuff are you doing to stay healthy, stay fit? What kind of workouts are you doing? What are you doing now with the self-isolation and having to try and stay fit?
I think I was doing some dry run and then try to improve my sleep.
Yeah.
And working on having a better diet.
Yeah. Well, sleep and diet are two things that I know I've been on your butt a little bit for the last number of years. Do you find yourself missing swimming or missing the pool?
Yeah. Yes, a lot. Yeah, I can't wait to get back in the water.
Yeah, it's funny. We did a Q&A and somebody said, what does the first practice back look like? It's like probably a lot of smiles and a lot of joy. Because I miss it terribly. And it's weird. It's like I miss going to the pool with you guys more than I miss getting the chance to go and do trials in April, right? Like, I know the trials will come back around, but I miss getting to go to work with you guys every day. And in particular with working with you, I think the last couple of years have been really fun because I feel like we're connected now and we're communicating in a way we never have. Um, so it's really exciting, and I'm excited to kind of get back. And so the other thing too is like, unlike some swimmers, this wasn't going to be the end of your career, right? You were going to swim 2020, but then you were really gearing up for 2024 because you're only 22. In 2024 you'd be 26, and as a male sprinter, you're still a young pup in that world of male sprinting, right?
Yeah.
So you're still building towards Paris in 2024, correct?
Yeah.
I guess this kind of just allows you to, like, I look at it as like, well, if there's the Olympics in 2021, then you only have to wait 3 more years for the next one.
Yes.
So at least it kind of condenses them a bit together. And then obviously I would ask you, but I think I know the answer, but your plan is once the water becomes available again, that's probably it. No more time off until trials in the Olympics then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just swim straight through. Um, so Tim, I want to thank you for doing this. I know how hard it is to do these because I'm bilingual and I'm French, but French is my second language, just like English is your second language.
Yeah.
So I always catch myself trying to speak in French and I'm thinking in English and it's hard to find the words. So I know that this isn't the easiest thing for you to do. So I appreciate you doing this. I do want to ask you one final question, and you can look at it in one of two ways. And I do this to everybody that I talk to. But if you had to go back and talk to yourself at some point in your career, young Tim Zeng or a young swimmer who's just like you, has this great success when they're young and they're going to go through their whole careers, if you could give one or two pieces of advice, just something you would say to either yourself when you were younger or a young swimmer who's following in your footsteps, what would you say to that person?
I would say just have fun. Yeah, just enjoy swimming and make some good memories out of it.
Well, it's funny. It echoes what a lot of people have said is like, enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, right?
Yeah.
Good. Well, I do appreciate you doing this and sharing your story. I think there's a lot of young kids out there that can relate to what you've gone through in different ways. And dude, I'm looking forward to getting back on pool deck and getting back to work because I think there's some unfinished business and
Yeah.
I'm excited to see you get up and go really, really fast. And like you said, we just have more time now. So that's all good. All right, man. Well, you stay safe. You take care of your family. And I know we're going to chat again soon, but we'll be back on the pool deck quick and soon. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you.
man. Take care.